The shuttle was small and cold. Lieutenant Park sat alone in the passenger section, watching the stars pass by through a tiny window. In his hands he held with his orders. The words were simple, but the mission was strange. He was to observe, nothing more, nothing less. The United Earth Coalition had been part of the galactic community for only 40 years. In that time, humans had learned many things. They learned that the galaxy was old and full of ancient species who had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. They learned that humanity was considered young, primitive, and mostly unimportant. And they learned that the best way to survive was to watch, listen, and stay quiet. Was good at staying quiet. He was 32 years old with a calm face and steady eyes. He had served in the Coalition military for 10 years, but he had never fired a weapon in combat. His specialty was analysis. He watched patterns. He studied behavior. He found the small details that others missed. This was why they chose him for this mission. The shuttle slowed as it approached the massive ship ahead. The Eternal Dawn was the flagship of the Alliance, and it was beautiful in a cold way. The ship was 3 kilometers long, with smooth silver surfaces and elegant curves. They built everything to look perfect. They were an old species, proud of their history and their culture. They had been fighting wars when humans were still living in caves. A voice came through the shuttle's speaker. It was flat and unwelcoming. "Human vessel, you are cleared to dock at Base 7. Follow the guidance lights. Do not deviate from the assigned path." Did not respond. The shuttle's computer handled the docking automatically. He simply watched as the great ship grew larger and larger until it filled the entire window. When the shuttle landed, gathered his few belongings. One bag with clothes, one bag with equipment. That was all he needed. He walked down the ramp and stepped onto the deck of the Eternal Dawn. An officer was waiting for him. They looked similar to humans in some ways. They had 2 arms, 2 legs, and walked upright. But their skin was pale blue and their eyes were large and golden. They were taller than humans, with thin bodies and long fingers. This officer was female, with silver hair pulled back tightly. She looked at the way someone might look at an insect. "I am Sub-Commander Nara," she said. "I will take you to your quarters. You will stay there unless called for. You will not interfere with ship operations. You will not speak to crew members unless spoken to first. Is this understood?" "Yes," said. Nara turned and walked away, followed her through the corridors of the ship. Everything was clean and white and silent. Crew members passed them without looking at the human. It was as if he did not exist. His quarters were small. A bed, a desk, a screen on the wall. There was a window that showed the stars outside. Nara pointed to a small device on the desk. "This will translate our language for you," she said. "The captain may call for you tomorrow. Until then, stay here." She left without another word. The door closed behind her. Sat on the bed and looked around the room. It was cold and empty, but he did not mind. He had expected this treatment. They did not want him here. They had only accepted human observers because of a diplomatic agreement with Earth. It was politics, nothing more. He opened his and began reading the briefing files again. The Alliance had been at war with the Dominion for 3 generations. They were different from They were large, strong, and aggressive. Their bodies were covered in thick gray skin like armor. They had 4 arms and eyes that glowed red in the dark. They believed in conquest. They took what they wanted and destroyed what they could not take. The war had been going badly for They were losing territory slowly but steadily. Their fleets were getting smaller while the fleets grew larger. Some analysts on Earth believed they would lose within 20 years. Others said 10. His job was to watch and record everything. Earth wanted to understand how galactic wars were fought. They wanted to learn from the mistakes so that humanity would never make the same ones. The next morning, a message appeared on his screen. The captain wanted to see him. Walked through the corridors, following the directions on his. Crew members still ignored him, stepping around him as if he were a piece of furniture. He did not mind. He used the time to observe. He noticed the tension in their movements, the worry in their eyes. These were people preparing for a battle they were not sure they could win. The Bridge of the Eternal Dawn was large and impressive. Screens covered every wall, showing star maps and tactical data. Officers sat at their stations, speaking quietly into their communicators. At the center of it all stood Captain. She was older than the other had seen, with lines on her face and gray streaks in her silver hair. But her eyes were sharp and cold. She had been fighting this war for most of her life. When she looked at, there was no warmth in her gaze. "So you are the human observer," she said. Her voice was tired. "I want to make something clear. You are here because my government ordered me to accept you. I did not ask for you. I do not want you. You will stay out of my way and you will not interfere with my command. If you cause any problems, I will put you in a storage room until this mission is over. Do you understand?" "I understand," Captain said. He kept his voice calm and respectful. "I am only here to observe. I will not interfere." Studied him for a moment. Then she pointed to a small station at the edge of the bridge. "That is your post. You may watch from there. Do not touch anything. Do not speak unless spoken to." Nodded and walked to the station. He sat down and activated his. Around him, the bridge crew continued their work, ignoring his presence completely. One officer was different. He was younger than the others, with curious eyes that kept glancing at the human. His name tag said. He was the tactical officer, responsible for analyzing enemy movements and planning attacks. Several times during the day, caught looking at him with something like interest. Late in the afternoon, walked past station. He slowed and spoke quietly without looking at the human. "I read about your planet. You had many wars." Looked up. "Yes, we did." "Did you learn anything from them?" Thought about the question. "We learned that wars are easy to start and hard to finish. We learned that the winner often loses more than they gain. And we learned that the most dangerous enemy is not the one in front of you, but the one you do not see coming." Was silent for a moment. Then he walked away without responding. That night the captain made an announcement to the entire ship. They were heading to the corridor, a narrow passage between two nebulae. Intelligence reports said a fleet was waiting there. The enemy had 70 ships. They had 32. It would be a difficult battle. Sat in his quarters and studied the tactical data on his screen. He looked at the numbers, the formations, the patterns of past attacks. Something bothered him. There was a detail that did not fit, a small thing that everyone else seemed to have missed. But he said nothing. He was only an observer. It was not his place to interfere. He closed his and tried to sleep. Tomorrow he would watch a battle. He would record everything he saw, and he would keep his thoughts to himself. That was his mission. That was all he was supposed to do. But somewhere deep inside, a quiet voice told him that this mission would not be so simple. The corridor was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Two massive nebulae stretched across space like purple and orange clouds, leaving only a narrow passage between them. Stars glittered in the darkness beyond. It looked like a painting, but knew that this beautiful place was about to become a graveyard. The fleet dropped out of hyperspace in tight formation. 32 ships, moving together like a school of fish. The Eternal Dawn was at the center, the largest and most powerful vessel in the fleet. Around it, cruisers and destroyers took their positions. Everyone knew what was coming. They did not have to wait long. The fleet appeared on the sensors like a swarm of angry insects. 70 ships, just as intelligence had predicted. They were already in attack formation, spread out in a wide arc that would surround the fleet from 3 sides. The tactical screens on the bridge turned red with enemy markers. Captain stood at the center of the bridge, her hands clasped behind her back. Her face showed no fear, only cold determination. She had fought many battles. She knew that fear was useless. "All ships defensive formation," she ordered. "Hold the line, make them come to us." Watched from his small station at the edge of the bridge. His was recording everything: the positions of every ship, the orders being given, the faces of the officers around him. He noticed that their hands were shaking slightly. They were afraid, even if they tried to hide it. They did not wait. Their ships surged forward, weapons charging. The first missiles launched across the gap between the fleets, leaving trails of fire in the darkness. "Brace for impact," someone shouted. The eternal dawn shook as the first explosions hit the shields. The lights flickered. Alarms began to sound. On the tactical screens could see the smaller ships taking damage. One destroyer was already burning. "Return fire," commanded. "All batteries fire at will." The battle had begun. For the next hour, space was filled with light and death. Ships fired at each other across the void. Missiles streaked through the darkness. Energy beams cut through metal and flesh. The communication channels were filled with voices, some giving orders, others screaming for help. Watched it all. He recorded everything. His face remained calm, but inside he felt sick. He had studied wars on Earth. He had read about ancient battles, about the millions who died in conflicts that seemed meaningless now. But reading about death was different from watching it happen. A cruiser exploded on the main screen. 700 crew members gone in a flash of light. No one on the bridge said anything. They could not afford to mourn. They had to keep fighting. "We've lost the Bright Star and the Morning Wind," reported from his tactical station. His voice was tight with stress. "They are focusing on our flanks. They're trying to surround us." "Pull the fleet," ordered. "Concentrate our fire on their lead ships. If we can slow their advance, we might survive until reinforcements arrive." But everyone knew the truth. The reinforcements were hours away. They would not arrive in time. Studied the tactical display, his mind working automatically. He had spent years analyzing patterns, finding the small details that others missed. Now, even as ships died around him, he could not stop his brain from working. And he saw something. The attacks were coordinated but not perfectly. There was a rhythm to them, a pattern in how their ships moved and fired. Every 90 seconds there was a small gap in their coordination. It was tiny, barely noticeable, but it was there. During that gap, the ships hesitated for just a moment before their next attack. Frowned, he checked the data again. The pattern was consistent. It appeared in every attack wave. Something in the command structure caused this delay. Perhaps their communication system was slow. Perhaps their commander was giving orders manually instead of using automated systems. Whatever the reason, the gap existed. If they could time their counterattacks to hit during that gap, they could do serious damage before they could respond. But said nothing. He was only an observer. He was not supposed to interfere. Another ship exploded, then another. The fleet was shrinking. Was working frantically at his station, trying to find some advantage, some weakness in the enemy formation. His golden eyes moved across the screens, searching for something he could not find. Watched him struggle. He thought about the crew of the ships that were dying. He thought about the rules he was supposed to follow. He thought about the gap in the attacks. Finally, he made a decision. He stood up from his station and walked too. The tactical officer looked at him with surprise. "What do you want, human?" asked. His voice was not unfriendly, just confused. No one had expected the observer to move from his post. Spoke quietly so that only could hear. "Look at the timing of their attacks. Every 90 seconds there is a delay, a gap in their coordination. Your ships could exploit it." Stared at him. "What are you talking about?" Pointed at the tactical display. "Watch. Count the seconds between their attack waves. You will see it." Turned to look at the display. He watched. He counted. And slowly his expression changed. "Stars above," he whispered. "You're right. How did I miss this?" "You are busy fighting," said. "I am only watching. It is easier to see patterns when you are not in danger." Hesitated. Then he turned and walked quickly to Captain, returned to his station and sat down. His heart was beating fast. He had broken the rules. He had interfered. But he could not watch any more people die without at least trying to help. On the other side of the bridge was speaking urgently to the captain. His face hardened. She turned and looked at with cold anger in her eyes. For a moment, he thought she would have him removed from the bridge. Then another ship exploded on the screen. The Silver Lance, a heavy cruiser with over 1,000 crew members, watched it burn, and something changed in her expression. "Show me," she said too. Brought up the tactical display. He showed her the pattern, the 90-second gap, watched in silence. "This came from the human?" she asked. "Yes, Captain." Looked at again. This time there was no anger in her eyes, only calculation. "Human," she called out, "come here." Walked to her. He could feel the eyes of every officer on the bridge watching him. "Explain," said simply. Kept his voice calm and clear. "Their attacks follow a pattern. Every 90 seconds there is a brief delay before the next wave. I do not know why, but the pattern is consistent. If your ships attack during that delay, the enemy will be slow to respond. You could destroy several ships before they recover." Was silent for a long moment. Behind her, the tactical screens showed more ships advancing. Time was running out. "You were supposed to observe," she said, "not advise." "I know, Captain. I apologize for overstepping." Looked at the burning remains of her fleet. Then she looked back at. "Your apology is noted," she said. "Now get back to your station and keep observing." She turned to her officers. "All ships prepare for coordinated counterattack. We'll transmit the timing. We hit them together on my mark." Returned to his station. He sat down and continued recording. But now something was different. The officers around him were looking at him differently, not with contempt anymore, but with curiosity. The counterattack came 60 seconds later. The fleet fired together, perfectly timed to hit during the gap in coordination. The results were immediate. 3 destroyers exploded in rapid succession. A 4th was badly damaged. For the first time since the battle began, the crew cheered. But the battle was not over. The still outnumbered them, and their commander was not stupid. He would adapt. Knew this was only the beginning. The small victory gave the fleet new hope. For the next 30 minutes, they used the timing pattern that had discovered. They attacked during the gaps, hit hard, and pulled back before they could respond. 7 more enemy ships fell. The balance of the battle was shifting. But the commander was learning. Watched the tactical display carefully. He could see the enemy changing their tactics. The 90-second gap was getting smaller. They were adjusting their coordination, tightening their formations. Soon, the advantage would be gone. "They're adapting," reported from his station. His voice was worried. "The gap is down to 70 seconds now. It's getting harder to time our attacks." Captain nodded grimly. "They have a good commander. I did not expect less. Continue the attacks as long as we can. Every ship we destroy is one less we have to face later." The battle continued, but the tide was turning again. They pressed forward with renewed aggression. Their commander had learned from his mistakes, and now he was angry. The attacks came faster and harder than before. Kept recording, but his mind was working on a different problem. Something about the battle did not make sense. They were adapting too quickly. They were changing their tactics almost in real time, as if they could predict what they would do next. He began reviewing the communication logs from the battle. The Eternal Dawn's computers recorded everything, including the encrypted signals passing between ships. Most of it was routine military communication, but noticed something strange. There was an extra signal. It was faint, almost invisible among all the other transmissions, but it was there. A tight beam communication, originating from somewhere in the fleet and transmitting toward the forces. Someone was sending information to the enemy. Felt cold inside. There was a traitor in the fleet. Someone was telling the exactly what they were planning. That was why the enemy adapted so quickly. They knew every move before it happened. He looked around the bridge. Everyone was focused on the battle. No one was watching him. He could say nothing and continue observing as he was supposed to. This was not his war. These were not his people. But if he stayed silent, more ships would die. More crews would burn. He made his decision. He stood up and walked quietly too. "I need to speak with you privately," said in a low voice. "It is important." Looked at him with surprise. The human had already broken protocol once today. What more could he want? "I'm busy," said. "The battle." "This cannot wait, please." Something in his voice made pause. He handed his station to another officer and followed the human to a quiet corner of the bridge. "What is it?" asked. Showed him the communication log on his. "There is a signal going to the fleet. It is coming from one of our ships. Someone is sending them information about our tactics." Stared at his golden eyes went wide. That's impossible. Our people would never." "The signal is real. I have traced it to the communications array on the Winter Sun. Someone on that ship is working with the enemy." Was silent for a long moment. The Winter Sun was one of their support cruisers, responsible for coordinating communications between the ships of the fleet. If there was a traitor there, they would have access to almost everything. "If this is true," said slowly, "then every order we give, every plan we make, they know about it instantly." "Yes, that is why they adapt so quickly. They are not predicting your moves, they are being told." Looked toward Captain. She was still commanding the battle, unaware of this new danger. "We have to tell the captain." "That is your decision, not mine," said. "I am only an observer. I have already said more than I should." Took thee and walked to the captain, returned to his station and watched. The conversation was brief. Captain's face went from confusion to shock to fury in the space of a few seconds. She barked orders to her communication officer. Within minutes, they had isolated the signal and confirmed its source. A name appeared on the screen. Sub-Lieutenant, a communications specialist on the Winter Sun. She had been feeding information to them for months, maybe years. No one knew why. No one knew how much damage she had done. But now they knew who she was. Captain gave a single cold order. "Cut all communications to the Winter Sun. Marines will handle the rest." The change was immediate. Without the intelligence from the traitor, the attacks became less precise. They still outnumbered but they were fighting blind now. The gap in their coordination returned, wider than before. "All ships resume coordinated attacks," ordered. "Make them pay for every ship they've taken from us." The fleet struck back with fury. Missile after missile found their targets. Energy beams cut through hulls. For a few glorious minutes, it seemed like they might actually win. Then everything went wrong. The flagship, a massive dreadnought called the Iron Wrath, fired a devastating barrage at the Eternal Dawn. The shields held for 3 seconds, then collapsed. Explosions ripped through the ship. Consoles exploded. Officers screamed. The bridge was filled with smoke and fire. Was thrown from his seat by the force of the impact. He hit the floor hard, pain shooting through his shoulder. Around him, people were shouting, crying, dying. He forced himself to his feet and looked around. The bridge was chaos. Fires burned in several places. Many officers were down, either unconscious or dead. Was still at his station, bleeding from a cut on his forehead but still working. And Captain. Captain was on the floor, not moving. A piece of metal had struck her head. Blood pooled beneath her silver hair. "Medical team to the bridge," someone shouted. "The captain is down." The remaining officers looked at each other with fear in their eyes. Without the captain, no one knew what to do. The chain of command had been broken. The ship was dying around them and they were closing in for the kill. Looked up from his station. His eyes met across the burning bridge. In that moment, something passed between them, a question without words. "What do we do now?" Knew he should stay silent. He was only an observer. This was not his war, not his fleet, not his responsibility. But looking at the fear in his eyes, looking at the burning ships on the tactical display, looking at the blood spreading beneath Captain's body, he could not stay silent anymore. He walked through the smoke and fire to his side. "You need to take command," said quietly. "The crew is looking for someone to follow. It has to be you." "I'm just a tactical officer," said. His voice was shaking. "I've never commanded anything larger than a simulation." "Then let me help you," said. "I will not give orders. I will only offer suggestions. You can decide whether to use them. But right now your fleet needs a leader. If you do not act, everyone on these ships will die." Looked at him, the young was afraid. That was clear. But beneath the fear there was something else. Determination, pride, the same qualities that had kept his species fighting for 3 generations. "All right," said. He stood up, wiping the blood from his face. "Tell me what you see." Pointed at the tactical display. "They are moving to surround us, but their formation has a weak point on the left side. If we concentrate all our fire there, we can break through and reposition. We cannot win this battle in open combat. We need to change the shape of the fight." Listened, then he turned to the surviving bridge crew. "All ships, this is tactical officer. I am assuming temporary command. Execute the following maneuver." The battle entered a new phase. It would be the most dangerous phase of all. The eternal dawn was burning, but it was not dead. Emergency crews fought the fires. Engineers sealed the breaches in the hull. The ship was wounded, bleeding, struggling to survive, but it kept moving forward. On the bridge, stood at the center of the chaos. He was young and scared, but he did not run. He listened to quiet suggestions and turned them into orders. The crew obeyed because they needed someone to follow, someone to tell them what to do when everything was falling apart. "The flagship is moving to intercept us," one of the surviving officers reported. "The Iron Wrath, it's twice our size." Studied the tactical display. The Iron Wrath was indeed massive, a mountain of metal and weapons that could destroy the Eternal Dawn with a single concentrated attack. But the dreadnought was also slow. It took time to turn, time to change course. That was a weakness they could use. "Suggest we do not fight the flagship directly," said two. "Instead, we should move around it, use our speed, force it to chase us while the rest of the fleet attacks its escorts." Nodded and gave the orders. The Eternal Dawn began a sharp turn, moving away from the Iron Wrath instead of toward it. The commander responded by ordering his flagship to pursue, just as had predicted. "It's working," said. "The flagship is following us. The other ships are trying to reorganize." "Good. Now tell your cruisers to attack the destroyers while they are confused. Quick strikes, then pull back. Do not let them form a defensive line." The battle shifted again. The cruisers, freed from the threat of the dreadnought, attacked the smaller ships with new energy. 5 more enemy destroyers fell in the next 10 minutes. The formation began to break apart. But the Iron Wrath was still coming, and the Eternal Dawn could not run forever. Captain woke up. She pushed herself off the floor, ignoring the blood on her face and the pain in her head. A medical officer tried to stop her, but she shoved him aside. "Report," she demanded. Her voice was rough but strong. Turned to face her. "Captain, you were injured. I assumed temporary command. The human observer has been assisting." Looked around the damaged bridge. She saw the fires being controlled, the officers working at their stations, the tactical display showing a battle that was still deadly but no longer hopeless. Then she looked at. "You again," she said. "Yes, Captain." "You were supposed to observe." "Yes, Captain, I apologize." Was silent for a long moment. Then slowly she smiled. It was a small smile, tired and painful, but it was real. "Your apology is noted," she said. "Again, now tell me what else you see." Pointed at the tactical display. "The commander is frustrated. He expected an easy victory, but we have made him work for it. His formation is scattered. His ships are tired and damaged. If we could convince him that this battle is not worth the cost, he might withdraw." "They never withdraw," said. "They fight until they win or die." That is what everyone believes, but think about it logically. This commander has already lost 20 ships. He expected to lose perhaps 5 or 6. His superiors will want to know why so many ships were destroyed for a single battle. If he continues fighting and loses even more, his career is finished. Maybe his life. Shook his head. They don't think like that. They value honor and conquest above everything. Retreating would be seen as cowardice. Would it? Asked. Or would it be seen as wisdom, preserving his fleet to fight another day instead of wasting it in a battle that brings no strategic advantage? Studied the human with new eyes. You have been thinking about this, about them. I am an observer, said. I observe everything, including the enemy. And what do you suggest? We cannot make them withdraw by force. We are still outnumbered. Hesitated. What he wanted to suggest was beyond anything he had done before. It was not just breaking the rules. It was rewriting them. I want to talk to them, he said. The bridge went silent. Every officer turned to look at the human. Even the alarms seemed to pause. Talk to them, repeated. Talk to the. Yes, directly, commander to commander. They will laugh at you. They will ignore you. They do not negotiate. Perhaps, but they also do not know what to make of humans. We are new to them, strange, unpredictable. I can use that. I can say things that you cannot say, offer perspectives that you cannot offer. If there is any chance of ending this battle without more death, I have to try. Looked at him for a long time. Behind her, the tactical display showed the Iron Wrath still approaching. They had maybe 15 minutes before the dreadnought was in firing range. This is insane, she said finally. You know that, right? You are asking me to let a human observer negotiate with our deadliest enemy in the middle of a battle. Yes, Captain. And if you fail, if they ignore you or worse, use the communication to track our position, then we are no worse off than we are now. But if I succeed, even partially, we might save thousands of lives, yours and theirs. Closed her eyes. When she opened them again, there was something new in her expression, something that looked almost like respect. Open a channel to the flagship, all frequencies. The tactical officer hesitated. Captain. Do it. The channel opened. Static filled the bridge, then cleared. A face appeared on the main screen. It was with gray armored skin and 4 massive arms. His eyes glowed red and his mouth was full of sharp teeth. Behind him could see the bridge of the Iron Wrath, filled with warriors. Vessel, the commander said. His voice was deep and harsh. You wish to surrender. We will accept, but you must deactivate your weapons and prepare to be boarded. No surrender, said. She stepped aside and gestured too, but someone wishes to speak with you. The commander looked confused as a human stepped into view. His red eyes narrowed. What is this, a human? Why is a human on a warship? Kept his voice calm. I am an observer from the United Earth Coalition. I am here to watch and record, but I have seen enough today. I wish to speak with you about this battle. I do not speak with humans. You are insects. You are nothing. Perhaps, but insects see things that larger creatures miss. Will you listen, Commander? Or are you afraid of what a small creature might say? This eyes flared with anger, but he did not close the channel. That was interesting. Speak, insect, but be quick. I have a battle to win. Nodded. You came here expecting an easy victory. You had 70 ships against 32. The mathematics were simple, but now you have lost 20 ships and we are still fighting. Your formation is broken. Your crews are tired, and reinforcements are coming for the... We will destroy them too. Will you? How many more ships will you lose? 30, 40. And what will you tell your superiors when you return with half a fleet? Will they call you a hero, or will they call you a fool who wasted their resources on a meaningless battle? The commander's eyes narrowed dangerously. You dare question my leadership? I question nothing. I only observe, and I observe that you are a smart commander. You adapted your tactics quickly when we found your weakness. You repositioned your flagship to protect your remaining destroyers. These are the actions of someone who thinks, not someone who blindly attacks. The commander was silent, continued. I have studied human history. We had many wars, Commander, hundreds of them, and do you know what I learned? The greatest commanders were not the ones who won every battle. They were the ones who knew which battles were worth fighting. They preserved their strength for the fights that mattered. This battle matters. Does it? The corridor is strategic, yes, but you can take it tomorrow or next week or next month. There is no deadline, no urgency, so why lose half your fleet for it today? The commander stared at him. The bridge of the Iron Wrath was completely silent. You are a strange creature, the commander said finally. I have never met a human before. You are not what I expected. We are new to this galaxy, said. We have much to learn, but we have also learned things that older species have forgotten. Sometimes the most dangerous thing is not the enemy in front of you, but the cost of defeating them. The communication channel stayed open. The two commanders and human stared at each other across the void. The next words would change everything. The communication channel remained open for 15 minutes. 15 minutes that felt like 15 hours to everyone watching. On the bridge of the Eternal Dawn, the crew stood frozen, barely daring to breathe. On the bridge of the Iron Wrath, warriors waited in confused silence. And in the space between them, a human and a commander talked. Spoke calmly, never raising his voice, never showing anger or fear. He showed the commander data from his, not just about this battle but about the entire war. Projections, calculations, numbers that told a story no one had wanted to hear. Your Dominion has been winning battles for 3 generations, said, but look at the cost. Every year you spend more resources than you gain. Every year your fleet grows smaller while your enemies grow more desperate. At this rate, in 18 months, you will have conquered all of space. The commander grunted, that is victory. Is it? Look further, look at what happens after you win, pulled up another chart. Your rivals, the Syndicate of, have been watching. They have been building their fleets while you exhausted yours fighting them. When your war ends, you will be weak, and they will strike. The commander's red eyes flickered. The Syndicate would not dare. They would not dare attack you today, but a year from now, 2 years, when your ships are scattered across conquered territory, when your crews are tired from occupation duty, when your resources are spread thin, they will dare, and they will win. Silence filled the channel. The commander stared at the data on his screen, his 4 hands clenched and unclenched. How do you know this? He asked. His voice was quieter now, less confident. Because humans have studied war for a very long time, said. We have made every mistake. We have fought wars that destroyed the winners. We have conquered empires only to watch them crumble. Your war against the follows the same pattern. You are winning yourself to death. And what do you suggest? That we surrender, that we run away like cowards? I suggest nothing. I am only an observer, but I will tell you what I observe. This battle has cost you 20 ships. If you continue, you might destroy the fleet, but you will lose 20 more. 40 ships gone for 1 corridor of space. Your superiors will not thank you for that. The commander was silent for a long moment. Then he asked a question that surprised everyone. What do you gain from this, human? Your species has no stake in our war. You have no alliance with the. Why do you care? Considered the question carefully before answering. I was sent here to observe, to watch and record, nothing more. But I observed something I did not expect. I observed good soldiers on both sides dying for a war that will benefit neither. My species has learned the cost of such wars. I did not want to observe another. You are soft, weak. Your species will not survive long in this galaxy. Perhaps, or perhaps we will survive because we learned when not to fight. History is full of strong species who are no longer here because they destroyed themselves through endless war. We do not wish to join them. The commander stared at the human for a long time. Something was changing in his red eyes. Not softness, exactly, but something like calculation. Like he was finally seeing something he had missed before. I need to think, the commander said finally. This conversation is unusual. Take whatever time you need. The channel went quiet but did not close. On the bridge of the eternal dawn, Captain moved closer to. What is happening? She whispered. I have never seen a hesitate like this. He is thinking, said. That is good. When people think, they make better decisions. But will he withdraw? The never withdraw. Never is a long time. Things can change. They waited. The seconds stretched into minutes. The two fleets floated in space, weapons ready but not firing. It was the longest ceasefire in the history of the war. Then the commander's face appeared on the screen again. Human, he said, you have given me much to consider. I do not agree with everything you said, but I cannot dismiss it either. You have shown me data that my own officers should have prepared. That they did not concerns me. I understand. I am going to do something unprecedented. I am going to withdraw my fleet from this battle. The bridge of the eternal dawn erupted in gasps and whispers. Looked like he might faint. Even Captain seemed unable to believe what she was hearing. This is not surrender, the commander continued, his voice hard. This is strategy. I am preserving my fleet for battles that matter more. The corridor can wait. The threat from the syndicate cannot. A wise decision. Do not mistake this for friendship, human. We are still enemies. The next time we meet, I will destroy you. I understand, but perhaps the next time we meet, circumstances will be different. The commander made a sound that might have been a laugh. You are strange, human. I will remember you. The channel closed, and then on the tactical display, something incredible happened. The fleet began to move, not forward, not to attack, but backward. One by one, the enemy ships turned and accelerated away from the formation. The Iron Wrath went first, leading its remaining vessels toward the edge of the nebula. They're leaving, said, his voice full of wonder. They're actually leaving. Captain watched the enemy retreat with an expression that mixed disbelief with something like awe. In 300 years of war, this has never happened. They have never withdrawn from a battle. Never. There is always a first time, said quietly. The fleet reached the edge of the sensor range. The Iron Wrath transmitted one final message, a formal ceasefire declaration that would remain in effect until further notice. Then the dreadnought jumped to hyperspace, followed by the rest of the fleet. The battle was over. For a long moment, no one on the bridge spoke. They simply stared at the empty space where the enemy had been. Then slowly, someone started to cheer. Others joined in. Within seconds, the entire bridge was filled with shouting, crying, laughing officers who could not believe they were still alive. Captain did not cheer. She walked slowly to where stood, still at his observation post, still recording everything on his. You were supposed to be an observer, she said. Yes, Captain. You were not supposed to interfere. No, Captain. You broke every rule you were given. I did. Was silent for a moment. Then she extended her hand in the human gesture of greeting that she had learned from diplomatic briefings. Thank you, she said. You saved my fleet, you saved my crew, you saved me. Took her hand and shook it gently. I was only doing what I thought was right. That is more than many would do. You could have stayed silent, you could have let us die. Why didn't you? Thought about the question. He thought about the burning ships, the dying crews, the endless war that had consumed both species for so long. Because I was watching, he said finally. And when you watch people suffer, really watch them, it becomes impossible to do nothing. That is what it means to be human, I think. We cannot look away. The celebration continued around them. Medical teams carried the wounded to safety. Engineers began repairs on the damaged ship. The surviving fleet regrouped and counted their losses. Approached later that evening. The young tactical officer looked tired but alive, which was more than many could say. "I have a question," said. "Back on the first day, when I asked if humans learned anything from your wars, you said the most dangerous enemy is the one you do not see coming. What did you mean?" Smiled slightly. "I meant that the greatest threats are not always the obvious ones. They were so focused on conquering that they did not see the danger from the syndicate. And your people were so focused on fighting that you did not see the opportunity to end the war without more bloodshed. And humans, what do you not see? We do not know yet. That is why we watch. That is why we observe, so that when our unseen enemy appears, we will be ready." Nodded slowly. "I would like to learn more about human history, about your wars and what you learned from them. I would be happy to teach you. But be warned, human history is not a pleasant subject. We made many terrible mistakes. That is exactly why I want to learn, so my people do not make the same ones." In the weeks that followed, reports of the battle spread across the galaxy. Military commanders of a dozen species read the accounts with disbelief. They had withdrawn. A human observer had negotiated a ceasefire. Everything they thought they knew about galactic warfare was being questioned. And everywhere, the same question was being asked. Who were these humans? What else had they been observing? And what would happen when they finally stopped watching and started acting? On the eternal dawn, Lieutenant Park returned to his observation post. He activated his and continued recording, just as he had been ordered to do. His mission had not changed. He was still an observer, he was still watching. But now, the galaxy was watching him too. And that, perhaps, was the most important observation of all.